Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Food School Smarter, Stronger, Leaner podcast on a mission to change the way the world eats. My name is Shurina, and I'm a certified nutritionist, health, nutrition, productivity, and brain performance coach. Just someone with a lot of passion to help you guys to use nutrition as a precise tool to feel, look, and do your absolute best. And guys, happy Monday! It's new day, new beginning, time to get after your goals. Hopefully you recovered and rested a lot during the weekend. You took all the time you needed to refresh, restart, and get ready to go. And now that it's time to go, you'll probably need, or at least wouldn't mind, a boost of motivation and drive and zest for your work. This morning, between like 5 to 7 a.m., I was working on some emails, reaching out to companies to sell my services as a brain coach. And I was dancing at the same time, listening to some music, and I decided to make a video for my Instagram stories, just showing that if your mission, whatever it is you decided to dedicate your time to when it comes to work, if it doesn't make you want to dance, even when you do the most boring imaginable thing like doing your emails, if some part of your soul doesn't dance on this edge of opportunity of what can happen when you get the yes from your customers, or maybe you're pitching your talk or your service to someone, or you are developing a course, or you're working on a book. Like, if your heart doesn't dance at the opportunity, a possibility of this opportunity, thinking about it, working on the next step, then maybe you're not doing the right thing. So, think about that first before boosting your motivation for meaningless stuff, right? We can talk all day long about nutrition and lifestyle to boost your dopamine, the molecule of motivation, and your motivation and drive. But if you do meaningless things, it only can go so far. The big part of why I'm so freaking on fire every day is because for the first time in my life, I feel really on purpose. I never felt that much meaning in everything that I do. And that is a huge part of why I'm motivated. Even though I do also invest in all the motivation boosting foods and protocols like cold shower, for example. I take it religiously every morning. Why? Because it says it's gonna boost your dopamine, the molecule of motivation, by up to 250% for just 1 minute of cold shower. Why wouldn't I do that and help myself to get after it easier? I'm on the side of being a chill person, meaning I need that boost of drive and zest, right? I'm on the side of being a little bit harder to push myself, and so I do everything I can to boost that motivation, the drive that pushes me forward, that hunger for achievement, right? I need that because I'm actually naturally quite satisfied with everything I have, right? So I need that boost. If you're the kind of person who has too much of that drive, then maybe you'll need to work on other stuff, not dopamine that we're talking about today, as if you haven't guessed yet. During this week, we're going to talk about all of the major neurotransmitters, some that are going to make you want to go after things more, like dopamine, but also some like GABA and serotonin that helps you to feel more satisfied with what you have, more chill, helps you to relax, to enjoy your life more, right? Again, I'm the kind of person who is chill already, so I need a little bit of kick in the butt. That motivation. And dopamine is that crucial neurotransmitter or messenger molecule that our neurons use to communicate between each other and to also tissues and organs in our body. So dopamine is that molecule, that neurotransmitter that makes us go. It's the drive, it's zest, but it's also involved in attention, in focus, in memory, in learning, in sleep, in movement, but basically all of those things that you need to get after things, right? If you have all the motivation but learn poorly and don't have any memory and your movement is all over the place and sleep also, then you're not gonna go that far. That's why dopamine is like so far reaching. It's involved in so many processes. Dopamine levels are very important. Again, even for your sleep, even one night of poor sleep will downregulate your dopamine receptors. It means that you actually will feel less motivated and driven, and there is biology underlying that feeling. So poor sleep really makes you feel not motivated. So first start with sleep, have good quality sleep, learn about sleep. By the way, guys, today, following the link in the show notes, you'll find my short, concise, precise course on brain upgrading, lifestyle, and nutrition that I just released on Friday. It's free. It's 1 hour, 15 minutes. It's all the foundational routines that you need to balance all the neurotransmitters. So you're driven to go after things, but also you can chill when you need to chill, and you have all the energy you need, and you have great sleep. We talk about sleep and sunrise and foods for productivity and focus. So that's in the show notes. But let's get back to dopamine. Today we're talking about dopamine, and specifically nutrition to boost, to increase your dopamine, that molecule of drive, of motivation, but also that is highly involved in focus, concentration, attention, memory, learning, sleep, movement. So motivation, dopamine, nutrition. And when we are talking about increasing dopamine, not necessarily only producing more of it, but also recycling it, not breaking down a lot of it, or improving the work of dopamine receptors, that parts of neurons that can accept that dopamine and then act accordingly. So we are talking about foods that increase the dopamine and that can potentially decrease it a lot and cause things like anxiety or depression or fatigue or lethargy. More on the sides of fatigue and lethargy, and you not driven that much to get after things, kind of like, yeah, I'd love to have it, but not as much to work hard for it. Plus, dopamine also boosts your confidence to get after challenging goals. So, foods. Let's talk about foods containing the precursor amino acid of dopamine. And precursor means dopamine, you need that amino acid or a part of proteins to make dopamine. Now, it's not sufficient, like if you don't have meaningful goals, probably not going to have that much dopamine, no matter how much of this specific amino acid you eat. And there are other, factors that play into your dopamine levels. But if you don't eat that amino acid, chances you making enough sufficient amount of dopamine are really, really low, right? So it's not sufficient, but without it, you're not going to go far. So do your best to eat these foods containing L-tyrosine. That's the amino acid or kind of protein that is made into dopamine. So the richer sources are, number one, salmon. Then we have lean beef, lean pork, lean chicken, and firm tofu. Then after that, we have all sorts of dairy products. And then after that, we have other plant-based things like white beans, pumpkin seeds, wild rice. But I want you to realize, guys, so compared to animal protein like salmon that has per serving of 6 ounces or 180 grams per serving has about 250% of estimated daily need for L-tyrosine. If you want to be super driven, then probably you want to exceed your need. So salmon will have about 250%, right? Compared to a cup of wild rice that only will cover 32%. And that's why these sources are not equal. Plus, that amino acid is more bioavailable. You can get more of it from animal-based foods due to fibers, different anti-nutrients. Animal foods usually are easier for our digestive system to digest and get the nutrients from, right? So I would focus on salmon, on beef, on chicken, on pork, and eat, good chunk of it every day. And eggs also will contain some L-tyrosine, so they are also a great source, and they are a great source of another attention neurotransmitter. So eggs are amazing, right? eggs with salmon is even freaking so much better. So salmon, eggs, some avocado that is also actually dopamine boosting. Some, I don't know, whole grain toast or a banana or some, carb source to give your brain the energy also to drive that dopamine into high achievement. L-tyrosine, let's get back to L-tyrosine and dopamine. So meat, salmon, pork, dairy products, and then we have, additional white beans, pumpkin seeds. Again, the richest plant-based source of the most concentrated source of L-tyrosine is firm tofu, that firm kind of tofu that would have the most L-tyrosine. It's, I think, the fifth richest source of L-tyrosine. And then also you have other foods like beets, chocolate, green veggies, all of my favorite foods actually, nuts, and even oats, olive oil, oregano, rosemary, sea vegetables, even watermelon, right? So these foods would contain some. So if you love them, eat them. And then a special notice to fava beans or broad beans that actually have L-dopa itself. So it's kind of like very similar to dopamine in our brain, and it crosses blood-brain barrier and is easily available. So if you also want to boost your dopamine with some L-dopa in plant-based foods, then fava beans are your beans. Then let's get to dopamine boosting beverages, and a special note is to two drinks. Coffee, natural caffeine boosts levels of dopamine, but in coffee, in natural source compared to, let's say, supplement in some energy drink or or caffeine supplement, caffeine tablet, in coffee it works better, in a more sustainable way. The scientists speculate that it's because of different antioxidants and plant compounds, but it has been shown that caffeine in natural drinks like coffee works much, much better than, again, in some energy drinks. And then we have L-theanine that is found in green tea that actually boosts different neurotransmitters, not just dopamine, but also serotonin and GABA, the chill kind of neurotransmitters. So green tea boosts your dopamine and your motivation in a more balanced way, right? So if coffee and caffeine seems like too much for you, maybe you get jittery or anxious, maybe you just drink too much coffee, that can also be a case. Dose matters when it comes to coffee. So if coffee is too much, then green tea, some chocolate, and you're good to go. And by chocolate, I of course mean dark chocolate, 85% and higher. I personally go for 100%. Now let's talk about a couple of other things. Curcumin or turmeric. Also, I personally consume it in a form of curry spice. I eat like a tablespoon every single day. All of my meals are spiced with turmeric, with curry spices. So they all taste the same, that I personally don't mind. So curcumin crosses blood-brain barrier like no other spice, and it does boost levels of dopamine. So if you want to be super motivated, eat your turmeric and curry. Eating less or doing something like time-restricted feeding or intermittent fasting, it actually increases the amount of dopamine receptors. And that kind of makes sense because when you are not getting nutrition, your brain wants to do its best to motivate you to get off your ass and go and get some food, right? So to make you more driven and motivated, your brain starts to increase the amount of dopamine receptors because, you're already starving, so you're not getting a lot of L-tyrosine. So your brain needs to maximize whatever L-tyrosine you have to boost your feeling of motivation. So, you're starving, you go and you get your food. So that's what happens with fasting. especially at the beginning, if you do, intermittent fasting, time restricted feeding, when you don't eat for periods of time during the day, so you increase these dopamine receptors. And then once you get the food, because you have so many more dopamine receptors, you actually get that much more pleasure from eating. You're satisfied with less food. And what else? You just get, more pleasure, and you seem to start overeating less because you get more pleasure from the foods that you get. That's actually how intermittent fasting can also decrease your appetite, just because when you don't eat for periods of time in your day, the amount of dopamine receptors increase. And that what it means is when you actually get the food, you are satisfied and get pleasure with less amount of food. So fasting works that way. It actually boosts your dopamine, the molecule of motivation, of drive, of zest for life. What decreases in foods the amount of dopamine levels of motivation and drive, what decreases it is eating foods with a lot of saturated fats, so animal protein, it has L-tyrosine, the thing that we need to make dopamine, but the actual fat, so if you eat fattier cuts of meat, that can actually downregulate your dopamine. So your dopamine receptors get less sensitive. So that's why you want to eat a lean cut of beef, of pork, of chicken. And salmon has all the great fats, omega-3s, that actually boost the dopamine levels, right? So salmon. So saturated fat also can be found in palm oil. What else? Like some nuts, like Brazil nuts. So don't, overeat those, or coconuts and coconut oil. Again, don't go too far with those. Otherwise, quite healthy, brainy foods. Sugar. At first, it boosts your dopamine, but for a very short period of time. And then you actually end up being deficient in dopamine because sugar has this tendency to decrease the sensitivity of dopamine receptors, or sometimes even kill them completely if you indulge too much. So sugar, quick boost, but then your levels fall down and you need another stimulative substance, and that usually ends up not creating a good pattern of over-consuming stimulating foods, right? So added sugar, no go. And then artificial sweeteners like aspartame seems to decrease levels of dopamine through indirect mechanisms, meaning through your gut microbiome. So drinks with artificial sweeteners, all kinds of foods with questionable artificial sweeteners are best to be avoided for a highly motivated, driven, focused, and attentive brain. And the last but not least, there are some nutrients that are needed to be present for your body, your brain, to maximize the production of dopamine. Those nutrients are B vitamins, B6, B9, B12, omega-3 fatty acids, the ones that are found in salmon. That's why, again, salmon. Vitamin D, so get some sun or get supplement. Or eat foods like cod liver or cod liver oil that is the richest and natural source of vitamin D. Get some magnesium and iron. I highly recommend you to supplement in most cases, although check with your healthcare provider for iron levels, right? But magnesium and iron for most people, especially women, for iron, but for magnesium for everyone, you need to supplement with those. And I also recommend to supplement with B vitamins. The more seems to be, the better. And that's about it, guys. Your dopamine guide to foods. Again, people ask me sometimes, so if I eat this food, will I get this instant boost of motivation and drive? Well, if you don't sleep well, if you don't have meaningful goals, it's going to be very hard for you to feel motivated no matter what you do. But if you have meaningful goals and you sleep well, and you maybe take a cold shower, but then also you own some vegan diet, or like your diet is all over the place, That's when changing the foods that you eat will really make a difference, right? You have meaningful goals, you do everything right, but for some reason, you're just not as motivated. For me, it was the case. So now I'm more than ever focused on all of these foods that boost my dopamine. Almost all of my foods either contain some dopamine boosting compounds or contain L-tyrosine or boost my dopamine indirectly in some way. And what I can tell you is in the past 3 months, I've never felt more motivated than ever. It's like I rest as much as I need, and the rest of the time I work on this meaningful goal of delivering brain nutrition, brain coaching to as many mission-driven companies and entrepreneurs and all kinds of mission-driven people around the world, right? So this works. Please re-listen to this episode if you need to boost the memorization process of all of these foods that will boost your drive and motivation. Share this with other mission-driven people, maybe people on your team, in your business, maybe your spouse who seem to be lacking motivation and drive at the moment. Share this episode with them. Don't forget to check out the link in the show notes that will give you all the basic routines and tools to optimize your brain performance, to maximize your focus, your clarity, your confidence, to cancel brain fog, anxiety. Very short, free, very precise. Also check it out, sign up, review, so we could get on the first page of educational platform Udemy, so we are seen by many more people, so we help many more people, right? So do all of that. Check out the course. At least the link is in the show notes. Share it also with as many people as possible. Share it with all your friends and your team, in your business, like everyone, so you all feel and do so much better with your brain. I would really, really appreciate it. Let's help the world together to do better. And that's it for today, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening and working on becoming the best version of yourself and changing the world for the better for all of us. So thank you. And till next time, eat some dopamine boosting foods for me.